Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to the Heartland Hot Dish Podcast. This is where we come to the table and rediscover the connection and meaning to our food and culinary treasures of the Great Lakes region. Join us as we discover the traditions and stories woven into the fabric of the Heartland cuisine, from the iconic dishes that define the Midwest to the hidden gems waiting to be discovered. We'll take you on a mouth-watering journey through the diverse culinary landscape of the Great Lakes area. Get ready to indulge your senses and ignite your appetite as we explore the rich tapestry of flavors that make up the Heartland Hot Dish. Pumpkin everything, from patch to plate, and we will get into pumpkin spice. We'll probably get there a lot, to be perfectly frank. All right, so today's podcast, again, we've got wonderful Daniel here. He's going to be my advocate for not pumpkin spice everything. We've got Marcy, maybe halfway in between. Marcy?
It just depends.
And then we've got Zsofia as well joining us. So we'll dive deep into our desires or not desires of our pumpkin spice and everything. But I wanted to talk a little bit, maybe start in the pumpkin world. Is it a good place? Because the side of it being whether it was a Thanksgiving food or not, we're heading in that direction real soon right now. Was it a thing? Come on, my American brethren.
Oh, dear God. We're asking about my
your history.
elementary school American history. I feel like that was all lies.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right, what were the lies that they told us?
But I just think that the
About
pumpkin
pumpkins?
is fascinating that pumpkin pie has become like a must. Whether you
right.
like it or not,
What-
whether you enjoy a pumpkin pie or not, it needs to make it to your Thanksgiving table.
What I really like about this moment in American present is this debate. I don't even know if it's a debate, but it's this idea about trying to divide people into saying, "Are you an apple pie person or a pumpkin pie person?"
Really?
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
no.
Oh, yeah.
This is a dangerous
I'm a pecan pie,
question.
so
Yes,
I'm
no, because ultimately what this comes down to, right, is it comes down to fall, right?
Sure.
That trying to get some more seasonality into our lives, and this is as much as I hate this debate, this is something that I really relish because I feel like seasonality has fallen out of American lives for probably the last 50 years, and it's making a comeback.
Yep.
So that's so that part is great, right? So it's the season. Pumpkins are out, right? They're
Halloween is here.
Halloween is here,
Halloween
right?
has been here
Right.
since the beginning of August. I just wanted to point that
But
out.
but for that matter, so have apple orchards, right? The early apples, right, will come in, end of August, September, right? It's time to get out into the orchards. It's time to get out into the pumpkin patches. These are the things that we do to help celebrate the season, and they have, end stream effects, which are pumpkin pies and apple pies.
See, as a Brit, that it was ornamental.
Sure.
It was not really eating. We'd eat our squashes,
Hmm.
but like, I think when it was introduced into Europe, it was like to the gardens. It was an oddity, an interesting plant. It looked cool, and you wanted to grow the weirder looking, the cooler type of them.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
when we were doing it in the UK, that's the purpose. It's not flavor. It was not to bake with. It was that. to
Right.
start
Well,
with, for sure.
and my wife and kids. There's a farm locally. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's a Wells Pumpkin Farm.
Yep.
Right, and they love going there at the beginning of the season to collect and to buy all of these ornamental pumpkins. Of small, large. Like we spend a small fortune there, and effectively, right, they become garden. Just baubles, right? They're
Sure.
the decoration. Well, it's a combination decoration and squirrel food. Right?
It's when you leave them out too long and they freeze, and then they defrost, and then they freeze and defrost. They get real mushy.
Oh, they
That's
don't
the
even
bit
have
when
a
you've gone
our,
too
our
far.
squirrels just like
Oh,
attack
really?
them like
Okay.
vicious, right, hungry beasts. We have the fattest squirrels in Ann Arbor, I'm sure. Right, because they just go to town on these things. There's no way of protecting them. But these are not the pumpkins that get turned into delicious things, right? The pumpkins that are edible are the sugar pie pumpkins, right? It's a
Yep.
it's a different varietal, and I suppose you could decorate your house with those. I don't even know if you could conceivably do anything edible with the decorative ones. That goes really beyond my.
I'm
Well,
guessing that.
outside of seeds.
Yeah, I guess like the thing you could probably do is when you have. Sorry, now we will touch spice spice will come back. But like that's where you cover it up with spice. I'm sure it's edible, it's usable, but it's not for its flavor. Then it just becomes its starch content, its ability to have fibrous content of holding something together.
Someone should tell the squirrels.
Yeah.
Well, I think the interesting thing when you talk about seeds, I remember the Roadhouse. Whenever we would harvest them, we would because we cook so much bacon at the Roadhouse, we would bacon fry the seeds,
Mm,
and that
mhm.
is killer.
So good.
Like any within reason pumpkin seeds that have been roasted in bacon fat is like a must. We did it for Camp Bacon. I feel like first time I remember doing it,
Mhm.
but then it became a regular staple as like a bar snack for a while
Yeah.
during the season.
You know, it's funny, like as a kid, like I remember pumpkin seeds more than I do pumpkin pies. But when I was younger and somebody first mentioned making a pie out of pumpkin, and you know, I have this memory of digging the seeds out and the flesh of the pumpkin being very stringy, and it didn't look edible to me. So I was very confused. I was like, why would you want to make a pie out of this? And I didn't realize at the time that there are very specific pumpkins grown to make pies now.
Yeah.
So for me, it was more about I liked the savory, the seeds and the spices and roasting those. That was very much more of our tradition growing up. And while people did bring pumpkin pies to Thanksgiving, I don't remember them even sounding appealing for that reason, because I was like, how do you turn this into something that's supposed to be so delicious that everybody craves?
Eggs.
Yeah. Well,
I
and,
feel like
and
you're gonna add
dairy,
something to that. Yeah.
right? Because dairy was a huge part of you know, the origin of it, because the pilgrims used to just fill the gourds with milk and spices and honey, and that was kind of like the precursor to the pumpkin pie. So, but then when they did start making the pumpkin pie in Europe, it was very much like a milk-based custard.
Yeah, I mean that's what we understood it to be because
Right.
the word is it's derived from the Greek word of like large melon. I think like where pumpkin of us Europeanizing this thing. I think that the squash and pumpkin divide is wide because the pumpkin is an American thing. It is not European. It's like potatoes, where nothing like the thought that potatoes didn't exist in Europe at some point hurts my brain. Right? It just like what? How? They're so part of who we are. Pumpkins have not invaded our culinary past or piece in the same way. They were more of like a novelty, occasional use, this or that. We don't grow them, I think, for food in the same way that you guys or we do over here in the US.
But either has the Thanksgiving tradition, right?
No,
Right,
no,
right,
we
right.
definitely
The idea of roast turkey and mashed potatoes and
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
and all of that stuff is still a very foreign concept,
It
right? It's-
100%.
yes,
Like
right.
Thanksgiving is we talk about it at the farm. Like we do a big Thanksgiving to go at the farm as one of our big holidays that we'll cater. And we don't do that many. It's the one that's kind of universal. Because Christmas, or the holidays, you can eat at different times of the year. You don't have to have it on Christmas Day or before or after. You can kind of spread it out. Whereas Thanksgiving, that's a day. You're gonna do it that day and guaranteed everyone's coming together. It isn't so religious. It's more about getting together and celebrating.
Right.
And I think there's something special, different about that doesn't exist in other holidays,
Right.
especially in the U.S.
Well, of course, it harkens back to the Native Americans and the Pilgrims, right?
Quite the story.
Quite the story.
Oh, you mean the
and
lies we were told in elementary
the
school?
lies we were told about how it was harmonious, and
I mean, it was my people doing it, so I said need to be like being quiet over here as the Brit.
At the very least, what we do know is pumpkins and gourds were very much a Native American crop, and a life-sustaining one at that.
Yeah, I mean, the reason they existed is the same reason they exist today. They kept.
Mhm.
They were in a self-protected little unit. You looked after them. They could get you later in the season in a good way. They weren't difficult to grow, and they're not difficult to grow. Like if you ever really want to grow squashes or pumpkins, they take up a lot of space, but
They
in general,
proliferate
they,
very well.
yeah, they will take over your backyard in a cool way.
Yeah.
But you can eat the flowers and the growth coming up to them. But they not a difficult crop. They're a pretty easy crop to grow, except for the bugs if you get down in the wrong side of it.
And you could
Right.
probably eat the squirrels too.
Yeah,
right?
I mean
So-
that's why the three that's why the three sisters exist, of being able to protect each other in that piece of when you grow those different things. So I diverge it too far. But the pumpkin side of it, I do think like it is and has remained a very American thing. I mentioned it before. The flavor of pumpkin isn't the flavor I think of when I think of pumpkin at all. the PSL. Is it PSL?
Right.
Pumpkin spice latte, everything. That's the spice. And that to me is holidays. That
Mm.
is all the spices that came from the East that were ridiculously expensive that you could, the reason you only have them at the holidays is they were too expensive. You couldn't use them anywhere else. You had to be incredibly wealthy even to use them at the holidays then. That's why they're special and kept in this special place, like the cinnamon and the nutmeg and the clove. They were just too expensive. So those are the spices I think of when I think of pumpkin, not pumpkin.
Right. And I think the thing that is really sort of fun and fascinating, of course, is the similarities of those spices for the pumpkin pie as they are for the apple pie. Right. That it's right. That there are other things that you might find right in pumpkin that you don't find in apple baked preparations. Maybe it's something like ginger. Maybe it's more on the nutmeg side. But there's small differences. It's not they're
not
not
vast.
radically different from each other.
Well, I think the addition of sugar could not have been a vast crop back then. Or any sweetener was not a vast crop. So really, you're dealing with pumpkin unsweetened, which is pretty, it's a savory thing at that point. And you're putting the spices in there to make you think it's sweet. I feel like that's why you probably did it originally if you're taking it as a sweet thing, because the apple at least has some natural sweetness comes out. It's not the pumpkin doesn't, but it's not the same.
Sure,
It's
but
not.
I think sort of as I think about these two things side by side of each other, right? I think about the apples sort of being this floral, lighter, brighter, because not only that they have the acidity to them too, right? Which is going to be this brighter thing. Whereas we're looking at pumpkins and I feel these as sort of darker, earthier flavors as far as the actual fruit or vegetable, depending on how you want to talk about this. Itself, right? I think one of the fun things is I just over at Zingerman's Deli we brought in this product that was just pumpkin. It came from Turkey and it's called koi and it's this candied pumpkin chunks. Right, so the pumpkin really comes through. There's not a
Anything else in
spice
there?
that's in there. It is sweetened so that so that's tasty and delicious. But it actually has almost this grassiness to it, right? Like the pumpkin still maintains its crisper texture, right? It's a fascinating product.
I think what's interesting when you talk about the US and especially like pumpkin pies and us doing it, the vast majority of people who are making them at home, good, please make them at home, are using canned pumpkin.
Sure.
They're not producing it, making themselves. Do you know which state produces the most? The only reason I know is I have the computer in front of me and I just Googled it. It's Illinois.
Makes the most, produces the
They
most pumpkin.
make
grow
pumpkins for can. They are the largest producer of pumpkins that then end up in canned pumpkin. So if you're eating pumpkin pie from a can, more than likely it's coming from Illinois.
Interesting. Well, everything that I read, in cookbooks, have said about pumpkin pie is like, yes, you can roast your own pumpkins, but the flavor difference that you're going to get from doing it yourself versus using a can is negligible.
Right, which is there is no flavor. Right, and I don't mean to
right.
fight that because there are wonderful varieties of pumpkins that I've eaten, but then it becomes, I feel like if I've eaten a pumpkin, it's not pie, it's roasted, and it's part of a side dish, and it might be sweetened or spiced, but it's just itself. It's not in a pie crust. It's not a dumpling.
Right. Well, I'm thinking back to this Afghani restaurant that I went to that had a roasted pumpkin dish. I think it was drizzled with some yogurt, right? And
Delicious.
It was,
Sold.
Right. Yeah. It was
I'm in.
right. It was amazing, right? But again, it was on its own, and it's and it's edible and enjoyable. And I don't think it's fair to the pumpkins to say that pumpkin has no flavor or that the canned pumpkin has no flavor.
It's so overwhelmed with everything else.
Yeah, I think
Here
that
comes PSL.
no. So originally the pumpkin itself, I think the appeal for people when they first started trying it was that it was subtly sweet. It wasn't just savory, but then it could take all these like the honey and the sugar and all these spices and kind of like absorb the milk again, filling the gourd. And then you would roast this thing and you would have just like this creamy, sugary, spicy treat.
Well, you can make the mash out of it. Like that to me, like puree is delicious.
Right. And I like the first time I even remember trying pumpkin just really kind of, again, outside of the pumpkin seeds itself was at school. I remember a girl in school she liked to make mashed pumpkin and that honey and raisins to it.
Sold.
And
I'm in. See, like you get me excited. That's delicious. The pie is just not. It's cold, right?
Yeah.
I think the coldness of the pie mutes the flavor in the same way. It was like a warm roasted with some honey and raisins in there.
I really like pumpkin pie. All right, so
There's gotta be one in the
right,
room.
I know. So
Daniel
this is
and I
right,
have to
right.
disagree.
This is hard to hear, right? What you're saying is not untrue, right? Right. A lot of the stuff that that comes through in the pumpkin is the spices, but I think it's also, for me, one of these things that is, it's part of the Thanksgiving holiday dinner. It's a
Yeah.
once a year treat. It is.
It's your cranberry sauce with your turkey.
It's autumnal, right? And here I am, and I've had this, this gigantic meal, and then it's time for
Let's have some custard.
it's right, except it's pumpkin, so it feels okay.
Right.
It's the healthy option.
Exactly, right. It's right, and it's not even like an apple pie, which is sugary apples, right?
Because it
It's
doesn't have a top.
right, and it doesn't have a top, so it's a little bit less carbs.
It's not in its own little savor.
right. And there are variations from pie to pie. My great aunt B made a delightful, for her pumpkin pie. The thing that really sort of made it stand out was the delicacy of its crust. Right, she made an incredible.
Was it
bottom-
proper crispy?
proper
Yeah,
crispy,
yeah. See-
flaky bottom pie crust?
And I think that a lot of people who, me included, was first introduced to pumpkin pie is that store bought. It's been made before, and it is rehydrated. That probably was a crisp pie crust, really good. But then it sits for a day or two, and it's then being brought to you. The inside has got soggy, and there is something very different about that.
Soggy or mealy. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just not quite the same.
And I think that's
Yeah.
true. Like
Sure.
that homemade pumpkin pie has that Christmas and bite to it.
And the quality of the custard, right? That's that the custard has to be smooth, and that you don't want to see any cracks on it, and you don't want to see it weeping, right? Like you want it to, right?
Sure.
Right. There's
That wobble. Got
there-
to get that
there-
wobble
there's
right.
a lot of
That
skill that's
wobble,
in there,
right.
and for me, right, as we've talked before about my fat tooth, and Zsofia and I were talking about on break about whipped cream and sour cream, right? That it is just a really good vehicle for something creamy on top of it. So I actually got in trouble because my whipped cream, because my family said, "Oh, you're the one who's into cooking. You should make the whipped cream." And it's like, "Thank you, I will." Because whipped cream, as a side note, is a thing that really bothers me because most people over whip their whipped cream till it
Yes.
starts getting to butter, right? And
Sure.
really, what you want to see is that glossy sheen.
Is he going to
to it.
say he's put
Right.
sugar in there? Daniel, do you put sugar in your whipped cream?
I put the barest amount of sugar in
Ugh.
it, right? And I was right,
Listen,
right, and I was told I was never making whipped cream again because it was not sweet enough.
you guys.
Right,
listen.
I put as much sugar as I could reasonably do and still feel okay about, and still not
So
sweet enough.
I am one. I don't usually like sweet whipped cream. I'm not gonna lie. However, brown sugar whipped cream is the way to
What?
go for pumpkin pie. You want to talk about a
What?
vehicle for serving up something
Really?
so delicious.
I'm going home and doing that.
Yes, yeah. You
I'm
have
sold.
just very gently fold in dark brown sugar into your whipped cream and plop it on top.
I'm getting some muscovado, making that
Yeah.
happen
Oh.
Yeah,
today.
it is so good. It is so good. Or on a bread pudding. Yum.
Wow.
So that's pretty much the only way I'm going to eat a pumpkin pie. I'm not going to lie. And I think it is a textural thing. And I know, like, we talk a lot about palatability, and like regional palatability and so on and so forth. And I feel like pumpkin pie was something, it was very much European in origin ultimately because
Which
when-
is fascinating because it's not a thing.
it's
At
not
least
a-
as
it's not a
me in all the countries I've been in and I've spent time in, I cannot think of a pumpkin pie in Europe I've ever had.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, but
My
once
head's still in the brown sugar whipped cream.
yeah,
because what
As it should be.
Because what I want to do is I want to simmer the cream with the muscovado sugar so that it really gets its thing, and then chill it, strain it, and chill it. And then
There's my man. There,
Right.
See, now we can be
Alright.
I'm
friends
back.
again.
I'm
He's
back.
back.
All right, but then do you get the ribbons of
Yeah, no,
brown sugar?
you can
Oh,
do that.
you right.
But I got to
Yeah.
tell you, like that, Daniel just described one of the methods that doesn't get done very often, where you literally will warm cream to put things in and then rechill it to then whip it.
Mhm.
That is a go-to, very good French classical training right
Right,
there.
thank you.
That makes me very happy.
So this is a whole. This is eventually going to be a whole like pie podcast conversation because dairy, again, is very much a European thing as far as like dairy
As
based
it should be.
sauces, milk, going into custard based pies, and then even apple pie having like a dairy based sauce, butter in the filling. Serving it a la mode, serving it with cheese, like that's a whole different, rabbit hole we could go down. But um, again, I did like that's so when I think of a pumpkin pie or like any kind of custard based pie, I want it to be creamy. I want it to have a certain texture. And so that's where I get into trouble with the store bought pumpkin pies. They're just too gelatinous or something for me. I did like it's something, that's a little, I find adverse. However, a pumpkin cheesecake
Yeah,
or
we
a
talked about
pumpkin
that.
brulee, like
Ooh.
now you're talking.
See,
Now-
that's how I feel about the pumpkin pie. If I've ever had to, and that's not like I'm not against it. I'm gonna eat it. It's great. It's a great pie. I'm okay with the pie. I'm gonna brulee the top. I'm gonna powder sugar it. I'm gonna brulee it
There
as
you go.
dough. It's a crumb, and now I'm
There
on
you
board,
go.
right? Or the other one really like is the sprinkle salt over it, and then make it savory custard, and that's really a good,
Oh.
nice,
Or
like
just
some
like
big
some-
flaky sea salt.
Or do some shaved white chocolate.
Yeah.
Right. But I
Mhm.
think you have to have as the starting place to understand this moment in time that pumpkin pie is just flippin' delicious, right? Because what has happened, right, is that and this is sort of the perversion, the bastardization, right? Like, you know, the other custards, right? That makes sense. Like taking it into like a pumpkin creme brulee, right? Expanding the custard, putting in cream cheese, making a pumpkin cheesecake, all on board, right? They're just minor variations off of things, but at some point there was this pivot that said, hey, this delicious thing that we love as pie and custard can be anything.
Yes.
that it can be in your coffee and it can be in your beer and it can be in your cookies,
Yeah.
right? And that we
Yeah,
can
here
make
we
this
go.
happen and that you can enjoy this everywhere. But it comes from this, right? We have to, it's hard because I want to acknowledge the place where it comes from. It comes from this place of seasonality and something delicious and something traditional.
It's those fond memories. In one of the previous podcasts, I talked about that rope apple candy as me and my dad going to a local candy store and buying dandelion root beer and apple rope candy. You give me apple rope candy anywhere, and I am as happy as I can because I go back to being that like 6, 7 year old. This, I'm imagining like the pumpkin spice thing is there is a lot of very fond memories that people attach to that like Thanksgiving time because it is a stop, especially over here. It's not a religious holiday, it's a national holiday of us celebrating coming together around a table and having memories. There's probably a lot less arguments at the Thanksgiving table than there is versus the other holiday tables, I've got to imagine. So I think that must be some part of it, right, Daniel?
Well, I disagree about the arguments part. that the Thanksgiving table has just as many as
It does?
as,
Okay.
as any other holiday table. It's family. We love them, but like it's
Gotta
family.
have the arguments.
Right. But I think a lot of it is right. Some of it is that, and assuredly. But I think the other part is, I know we're going to be talking about tailgating. I think some of it is about the pregame to Thanksgiving. I'm getting ready. I'm getting myself in this holiday spirit. It's just been summer. We're going to have Thanksgiving coming up. That's going to be a really big deal. How do I change my, how do I get into this headspace of this new season? And, right, it's, cozy sweaters and pumpkin spice things.
Did you ever have pumpkin jerky?
No.
Have you had pumpkin jerky?
No.
Oh, Zsofia, you've had it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where have you had it?
In Lake Erin. My husband grew up in Lake Erin.
There you go. So pumpkin jerky's a thing.
It's a Michigan
Really?
thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it a Michigan thing?
I
Well,
believe
it's here.
I'm
It's in the
Googling
state.
I believe it's a thing that like Native Americans did way back when. Like
Okay.
it's a real thing that was. It was a way to preserve, transport, and take food with you, dry it, powder it, keep it as jerky. It's delicious. like that.
Interesting.
That makes the pumpkin flavor come through. I know that we're now drifting.
Sure.
Way
Away
back
from,
in-
away from the spices. Is it spice season, sweet and salted? What's the?
I've had it straight. I don't know about Zsofia. Straight, like or
Yeah, straight.
So it's just dried. It's
Yeah.
just like
Yep.
dried pumpkin meat.
yeah.
Oh,
Right.
I
so
love
like
jerky in general.
Marcy's coming down the pumpkin jerky.
yeah, so Native Americans would preserve pumpkins by cutting them into slices,
There you go. Look at us.
drying them in the sun
We
or
got this,
by a
Zsofia.
fire. There you go. All right.
That could be a
I-
cool
I
thing.
have to try these. And then do you like salt them?
See, I don't think I've had. I think it's just been a straight thing. When I think of the spice, that spice makes me think of pumpkin jerky back in the day, and I've had that back home as
Right.
well, back in the UK or in Europe.
Pumpkin spice. Pumpkin spice is thought to have originated from a Dutch.
From Starbucks.
You're killing me. Dutch East Trading Company.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah,
Oh, well, then that makes sense,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because if you think about it, a lot of those spices are Asian.
I mean, that's it. I said it. Those are the holiday spices were just so hard to get and so expensive. So the Dutch East India, the two,
Mhm.
there's the Dutch and there's the East India shipping company. Those are the two that used to bring all that stuff in, and they literally were so wealthy. They had more power than the countries of Europe at that point, because the UK set up the East India Company. It was all the shipping, and that's what it is. Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So go down your pumpkin spice world, Mr. Daniel or Marcy, because I'm not that one. I said Starbucks, but that's my introduction. To
Well,
the
right.
pumpkin
So,
spice everything.
and I think a lot of the pushback against the the pumpkin spice things is that that the pumpkin has been removed from some of them. Some places there will be
yeah,
pumpkin.
Roadhouse puts pumpkin. You put it in, right? Marcy?
Roadhouse puts real pumpkin puree in our syrup, and then simmers it down. So you start with the pumpkin puree, your dry ingredients, so the sugar, and the muscovado, the spices, the vanilla bean, and everything else, and then they cook it down until it's this beautiful golden syrup. So you get that full flavor. We use a piece de cru. They do have pumpkin spices that they sell us, and it's just this beautiful golden syrup that's, you can tell is just pure and amazing, and like the pumpkin intensity like really comes through in the coffee, because once you do, of course, turn it into a latte and add milk and steam it, you can lose some of that flavor, especially if your espresso is really strong. So I think having real pumpkin in there, not to mention like the spices themselves are relatively good for you if you think about it, and like at this time of year when we're all trying to stay healthy, these are all spices that, historically speaking, that we imbibe so that you're trying to like strengthen our immune system. So to me, a PSL is something that should be
Just love that it has this acronym.
something that not only perks you up and makes you feel good about the season, but is on a certain level somewhat good for you if you can try to find anything to hold on to there.
It's the
because
ginger. It's gonna save you.
It's the ginger that's going to save you, or it's the real pumpkin, because otherwise it is just straight up sugar in
Sure.
most of these other drinks that you're getting, and then you're just bouncing off the walls for the day before you crash hard. And
Well, I think for me, instead of the health thing, right? Like I really, I think, respond to the warming part of it.
yeah,
Right, that it's a cooling season, and these are warming spices, and
Right.
and they can make you, even if they don't actually, increase your body temperature, may make you feel that sense of warmth,
yeah, you should feel it in your toes, right?
right? But
Yep.
right, and I saw that the Roadhouse takes some of the pumpkin syrup and mixes it into a cold foam that can top
Yeah.
drinks, and I think that for me and somebody with my fat tooth, right, having that in the
Fat
foam, and right, because then you get really you can experience it in the foam, or you can drink it together with the coffee, right? And
I
you
do love it is true in the world of like fat isn't going to make you fat. Daniel is skinny as you like, right? And I'm Mr. Sweet Tooth and he's Mr. Fat, and I'm the fat one and he is the skinny one in this world right now, talking about those two things. It's the sugars is a problem. It is not your fat.
I genes play a good part in this.
He's
So,
got a
right.
good metabolism.
That's-
Apparently he does.
Yeah.
Like, what's the weirder places you've seen those pumpkin spices make their way into things? Like, what's weird pumpkin spice items out there? Because there's a few, right?
Oh, there's a lot, right? But I think the issue is the places that don't even have the pumpkin in it, right? That it's
Sure.
that it's just those spices. But I've never really understood, pumpkin spice beers like that. That's
Oh,
Yep.
see, now I can get on board.
wait, you can get on board with the pumpkin spice beers.
Yeah.
You're,
There's an Oktoberfest beer.
No.
That's up here.
No.
And then there's a pumpkin
No.
spice beer, which is down here.
No. So I'm gonna say a name, and everyone's gonna think it's the wrong type of beer. There's a place called Shipyard Brewery, but it's in Maine, in Kennebunkport. It's got a bar, and it's there. And I lived there back in the day. It's where the Bushes have their summer home, and they had a pumpkin beer there. If anyone wants to buy and ship that to me, you will make me so happy. It is so delicious. It's so yummy, and it is pumpkin spices. And I don't care, and it's just so good.
It's called
Pumpkin spice.
Head.
Anything else, I'm like dumb. But
That's
that
fascinating.
beer,
Right.
It's called Pumpkinhead.
there you
Is
go.
it-
Yes,
is it-
yes,
is
it
it
is. It
sweet?
is. You're correct, Marcy, and you can place your order today. They probably don't ship it to Michigan.
Is it sweet?
Nope. It is so good. Sorry.
Interesting. Well, I think it's like anything else, right?
And I
You
had
c-
that
you-
before. There was that was
Right.
way back before pumpkin spice was a thing.
Sure,
Like, I feel like it wasn't a thing
Right.
back.
One can find good examples of just about anything, right? I think this is kind of the fun
It
of
is
right,
true.
of
It is
food,
true.
right? Like anything that's out there, right? It's
Well, I googled you can get pumpkin spiced spam.
oh,
You can get pumpkin spice deodorant. You can get pumpkin spice dog treats,
right. Don't recommend eating the deodorant.
body lotion, lip balm. Lip balm I can get for some people. Maybe I'll buy that for Tabitha and Rachel.
Candles.
Candles,
Tooth-
toothpaste. I mean, pumpkin spice toothpaste seems like I've gone too far at this point.
Yeah, I use Tom's of Maine. They've got fennel toothpaste, right?
Pringles did it in
Cinnamon one.
2012, and they have never done it again.
Yeah, right.
I just think this thing, pumpkin spiced scented trash bags. I think you've crossed the line
A
when you made
trash
trash bags smell like pumpkins.
Ooh,
spice.
cereal. Cheerios.
Oh,
Yeah.
lordy.
I'm looking this up now.
Yeah.
Right. And I,
Frosted Flakes, pumpkin spice cream liqueur, cider,
Margarita.
Oreo cookies.
Instant ramen. Like, they have lost their mind.
I think every individual instance of this might make sense, right? But the idea of all of this as a collective, as we now
People wait
experience,
so hard. Tabitha, my business partner of the farm, is so excited when it is available and it's out, and even the Starbucks.
is that just for the or no? It's for everything.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I'm in the spice land of pumpkin spice everything. Yeah,
I mean, there's just it's fall. All right, right,
Yep.
right, and fall is great, and I love this idea of as I mentioned, right, having something to help connect us with the season. But this is one of the best culinary seasons out there. Some people may argue it's summer. I
No, this
argue
is
that
the
it's
season
fall.
when everything is ready. Yes,
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly.
Everyone's
right.
like, "Oh, can I get tomatoes and no? They are
Right.
not ready.
they're not ready. They're
Stop!
right,
Stop
right.
talking to me."
That's right. They'll start in August, but they continue through September. And
Yep.
people are always surprised that there's really good tomatoes in September. And
Yep.
not only are there good tomatoes, those are some of the better tomatoes.
Correct.
Here, right. Right. The first ones are going to be there
This
in
is
August.
the season
but
when
this-
everything is ready.
Yes, exactly. So So the fact. Right. So I love that we're celebrating the seasons as an American culture. But it kills me that this one thing has overshadowed everything
Agreed.
else that is here.
I
And
think
that
there
is
was a
Agreed.
John Oliver episode where they just did a whole thing of like news reporters talking about pumpkin spiced everything maybe a couple of years ago, and that was hilarious. Like how they turned everything into pumpkin spice.
It's
This.
ridiculous. I feel like there needs to be, those POV TikToks
Mhm.
where, somebody's looking at things and giving you that look like, what is that? And some of them are just so good at it, like they give you these classic expressions. I feel like there needs to be a POV reel of somebody going into various stores and looking at all these pumpkin spice products and just being like, really?
Every year I think it's gonna burst. I feel like it's gone too far, right? It's crossed the line, but God, people love it.
Yogurt.
Those who are in are
Mm.
in, like deep,
Yeah.
and ready to love it forever.
and I think they carry it, right?
Sure.
Right. They're the ones who carry it, right? Because
They're the super fan that are never going to go away. They are the evergreens of pumpkin spice.
Right, and this is kind of just one of those rules of business, right? That it's people talk about the 80-20 rule. 20% of people will buy 80% of the stuff, right? Like, right? So you don't need
They're
that.
going back and getting 10 pumpkin spice lattes
I
in that
know,
day, and I'm
right.
getting none.
Exactly. Right. When we talk about hot dogs and what the average American, the number of average American hot dogs somebody eats, all right, and it's just a staggering number, right? Right.
Pumpkin spice hot dog.
God, somebody heard that. Somebody heard that. We did not say that. I will edit that out. That will not stay in here. Oh my Lord, that just happened. There's going to be pumpkin spice bacon. Oh my God,
There's
these are
already-
things I've never seen
Listen,
it.
you guys,
I bet that's-
pumpkin spice bagels, pumpkin spice hummus.
Ugh. Ugh.
Come on, pumpkin spice
But
yogurt.
it's the fact that it's pumpkin spice that makes my brain hurt. Because
Yeah.
call it something else, and then I could actually be a little more okay with it. The fact of what you say, there is no pumpkin in it. There's no powdered pumpkin in. It's the flavors you add to pumpkin to make it the way you think it is. It's got nothing really to do with pumpkin at this point.
Right.
And I feel like that white lie to convince people it's the thing is the thing that hurts me the most.
So maybe the solution here is right, and this is this is going out on a limb, is to try to instead of taking
I'm ready to
because
eat some.
because nobody's nobody's going to respond to the pumpkin spice latte thing or the pumpkin spice everything because those fans are baked in the wood, right? Baked in the wool, right? I right.
That was amazing.
Right. I think maybe it's to try to come up with a different thing than pumpkin pie. And hear me out. I've heard it said that and I think you may agree. Just hearing your thoughts on pumpkin pie in general, that maybe we need to try elevating sweet potato pie.
Oh, see, now I'm on board. See,
Right.
Yeah.
see, and I feel different. I do feel different as sweet potato pie.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
How?
But the natural sweetness in there, not having to add too much more sugar into it to
Right.
make the custard. I
Right.
love a sweet potato
Yeah.
pie.
Right.
Like,
They-
that's a jam. That's
It is
I'm
gonna
in.
be, yeah, naturally sweeter than.
Yeah, the
Right.
caramelization on that really good.
Yeah.
And then we can get into like yam versus sweet potato. It's the same with like
Sure.
pumpkin versus squash kind of game. Yes,
Right.
they are real in there.
Yeah.
But like, yeah,
Maybe that's the solution. Elevating sweet potato pie. Right. And then if we as a culture can
36
start,
minutes
right,
in, we're changing the
Yeah, are we-
podcast.
adopting
Candy?
right.
Candy? Are we adding marshmallows? to the top of that
Well,
pie?
that's such a weird thing. How did that be? Also, okay. I'm sorry. This is about pumpkins, but how did green bean casserole become such a big thing at that time of the year? Like, what part of that makes sense? Green beans, not at the point of Thanksgiving. Green beans are no longer in season. The only place you're getting them back then was in a can
Or frozen.
It's
or frozen. I guess or
Or
frozen.
frozen.
But like, weird thing. One, green beans are very expensive, and then you're going to mix it with another thing that's very expensive called mushrooms, right?
Well, there you have it.
And I'm
This
like,
is about
wow,
the holidays and
this became a
expensive stuff.
really expensive thing.
Right.
It's an industrialized recipe, which is
It
not
mu-
surprising.
I bet it was a marketing tool.
Campbell's
Yeah.
soup in 1955.
Look at her.
That
She
is
knew.
where it came from.
Yeah, it had to be right. It's the breakfast is the most important meal was a way to sell cornflakes.
Yep.
Mhm.
Green bean casserole was a way to sell some more Campbell's things. Damn.
Yeah, that's where it came from.
Sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sad.
It's kind of like the Jello recipes, like those savory Jello recipes.
I see those have entertained me for years. So my wife's family, hey, if you're listening, I'm sorry, do not make the most flavoursome foods.
Mhm.
And I always, every year, want them to turn up with a Jello something, and they have yet to do it. I want the bright green Jello with something in it. I want to see it. I want to
Careful what you
experience-
wish for, because
No.
I'm sure that there's a pumpkin
Somebody
spice
listen
Jello.
and
I'm
no,
sure.
oh,
I'm sure there is.
Like the Jello world, I love that because when I started in the industry, when I was studying, I did aspect work, which is real like jelly on top of fish, and you
Mm,
decorate it. And it's one of those things that is a dead thing. Well, lots of times we say things come in rotation or come back. Aspect work will never come back. It's a done thing.
Oh, I'm not sure about that.
Oh, it's such a dumb thing.
People,
The
people
pictures.
bring it back just to make fun of it.
Sure, that would be its only purpose.
Yeah, I've seen a thing about serious chefs who are doing this again.
Oh my God! If
Yeah.
it comes, it is my very first chef said everything you did the first year of being a chef will be the thing you do the day you die. I was like, what? So if Aspect comes back, I'm done. I
I-
need
it
to I
was-
need to update some documents. Yeah.
Believe it or not, it was part of my French culinary training.
Really?
aspect work, aspect
Yeah.
terrines and charcuterie.
Yeah, you had to make galantines. You had to decorate
Yep.
those things and make
Yep.
mousselines. Okay, sorry. I've drifted very far away from our pumpkin spice
about-
sweet potato game.
Sorry, what about those gelatin cakes?
No, for the Thanksgiving, maybe this should have been Thanksgiving. I want somebody to bring me one of those. I like Jello. To be clear, straight up Jello, we have it in our house. I have it on a regular basis for my kids. I get that it's not the best thing, but God, it's just a wonderful thing. And for me, it's the piece that it was so expensive back in the day. Like making a gelatinized anything and then it being a sweet fruit thing, it feels like king of the road. And I always had Jello and custard, those two things together, like loosey goosey custard and Jello. So that is my childhood of like those wonderful days at the my primary school cooking. We'd had Jello and custard. I want my Jello, like Thanksgiving.
I will make you a gelatin.
Can it be bright green? It doesn't need to be lime
be
flavored, but I
bright
need it to be
green.
really green.
I refuse to make it pumpkin spiced, but I'll put
Okay.
fruit and nuts in it if you want.
Yeah.
But Kieron, I think you raised a really good point that we're, I think it's
Somehow I got to a really good point with Jello.
Well, no, it was about how we were talking about Thanksgiving, right? But I think what we're talking about is pumpkin, and it's really impossible to talk about pumpkin without bringing in Thanksgiving, right? It's such a central thing to the Thanksgiving celebration.
Yeah, I find it interesting that like the difference between the pumpkin and the squash is so different, and yet they're kissing cousins as far as flavors go. And I think I tried to Google like how much of pumpkin pie filling is actually pumpkin, and it's not. So the FDA has a percentage. I did not look at the percentage. Go ahead. Listeners, look up the percentage. It can be a difference of the two. So you can still have the squash versus the pumpkin in there.
I feel like I would be able to taste the difference between a
Yeah.
squash pie and
You
a
really
pumpkin
can taste
pie.
the difference.
Yeah.
I like that,
Right, yeah.
Daniel.
Yeah, I feel like squash would be a lot more savory.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Right. And it just wouldn't hit.
Yeah,
It
color
wouldn't hit
difference.
those same notes. And if you wanted to cook them and do the blind taste test, I'm happy to.
Oh, I've done that with
Ooh,
beets and
blind taste
conveits, like
test.
colored beets. I've totally convinced people
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I do agree. Like
Right.
the Thanksgiving is a necessity, and even the holidays in general, like leading up and part of this. And we haven't touched on it, but like Halloween is my wife's favorite holiday of all. The fact that jack-o'-lantern piece of what that is makes that all part of that journey towards that as well. As I think that's such a magical like drift into that. Again, that doesn't exist back in Europe in the same way. Halloween's
Right.
not a thing.
Well,
Like
it-
at least it
right.
wasn't for me as a kid.
And that's interesting too, right? Like thinking about the march to Thanksgiving, right? And the sort of the slow, steady drumbeat of pumpkins until we get to the
Yeah.
to the ultimate expression
amount
of the pie.
Money you pay like $4 or $5 a pumpkin just to put on your porch and decorate, or to have a scattering of them per pumpkin. I mean,
Well, I think we give the farmer about like $100, like every.
yeah, like
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
decorative. You're never
Yeah.
cooking with those
No,
ones.
no.
Especially if you're doing the you pick, because then it's just a part of the whole experience of going to like Wyards,
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
wherever
It's
you-
filling up a little wagon.
Wagon.
A wagon
Like
full
a
of.
red
And
Fire
all of
wagon,
those, I
yeah.
got to imagine, are completely not something you ever want to cook. I've never tried. I've never
Yeah,
been.
I-
in that
I
world.
haven't
They
tried
have
it.
to be purely size related and nothing else of what it is.
Yeah, and there are also those really unusual ones, right? Like with,
Yeah.
with the little warty sort of things and the
Yep.
different colors and stripes. And
Those are more expensive.
right, yeah, right. The bigger ones are, and sometimes with usually my experience with produce is if you're cooking with something, you want to have the smaller version of them than
Yep.
the bigger.
You want like the patty pan size kind of.
Right, because the flavors are going to be there, but they're just going to be dispersed in in a larger sort of form, right? So they're going to get diluted. That there's some sort of ideal size of sort of maximizing flavor in produce. This is what happens with grapes, right? That the grape growers want to stress the grapes so that they have as much flavor in them. Too much, they're all watery.
Yep.
Too little, there's no flavor, right?
You got it exactly in that world. So we're coming close to the end now. Marcy, you're not so much of a pumpkin pie person,
No.
and I'm also not. But Daniel, you are
I,
100%.
I am. If it's
Do
between
you ha-
pumpkin pie or pumpkin cheesecake, it'll be pumpkin
Do
cheesecake.
you
Yeah.
buy or do you make?
I buy. I'm not a baker.
Does anyone in your family have that recipe? Like, is there a grandma, a grandfather,
Oh,
a sister-in-law?
Ampy's recipe.
Yeah.
I'd have to check with my great Ampy. I'd have to check with my aunt Nancy.
But just was
whether
there a
it got passed
recipe like
along.
that was the one?
Right.
Do you remember as a
Well,
kid?
Everyone made their own pumpkin pies.
did.
Right, right. My Aunt Nancy. Yeah, everyone had their own sort of versions, but it was B's that was the stunning one.
Bees.
B.
Okay.
B-E-A.
Okay.
Yeah. No, she did amazing one.
Because to me, finding that really great, because the bakehouse is pie and setting and baking is perfect.
Mhm.
Like it really like it holds together. To me, that homemade pie, and I only ask because if we were going to say a recipe from this, I'd probably want to find that like personal connection one. So maybe Daniel, I'll give you that mission before I edit and get this one out into the world of maybe finding us an old good solid pumpkin pie recipe.
It may be a secret.
Do you ever? Oh, nice. Do you, when you do that, are you a blind? You said you're not a baker. You're a baker, though.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you blind bake and then custard, right? You're not a raw bake because
Correct.
that's terrifying. Do you egg wash?
Yes.
So you'll blind bake, then egg wash,
An egg wash.
then fill, then bake.
Yes.
And do you do the final bake pretty close?
Pretty close.
Like if we're gonna have dinner at 8 o'clock, are you making them that morning and then setting it? And I shouldn't say pumpkin, but pie in general maybe is a better because both of us. Have you made pumpkin pie?
I have made pumpkin pie. I generally I don't serve it warm, so I let it set.
Okay.
But I do with all of my pies, like particularly fruit pies.
See, when I have made it, and I have made it, I've done the blind bake,
Uh-huh.
egg wash, then I cook the custard basically on the stove till it's almost set.
Mhm.
So I want to put it in the oven for as little as humanly
Mhm.
possible. I don't want it to interact as much, so it can set pretty good. I usually only cook it at like 325, and it's usually in there for like 15 minutes tops. And I tend to cook. I'm not the 12-inch. I'm down into like 6. I like small pie. I don't want too big. I want to control my temperatures. But then I am
also a higher crust ratio.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I love me
I
some
was
crust.
gonna say the higher crust ratio is more appealing.
Yeah.
Especially on the custard side
Yeah.
of that
Yeah.
piece. We don't chill. I've never chilled. Like it's baked. It's like in the pie chest kind of guy. Like I'm like this sucker is. It might get cold because it's chilly outside, but that's about as cold as it's getting.
Well, I don't chill any of my pies.
Yeah,
They're all
okay.
at room temp.
Chilled pie. You must have if you were buying at some point, right?
No,
Dan?
I most of the pies I buy are all shelf stable. Right, the bakehouses are right.
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
bakehouses are right
100%.
there out
Yep,
on the counter. Right, and I also this is where I lose you again because
You've become a friend for a minute
it's
there.
fair, right? So right for me, I like pumpkin pies so much that it's actually one of those foods where even a bad pumpkin pie is still pumpkin pie.
Oh,
Right. So it's I can recognize and I can appreciate the good ones, but if somebody puts a a store bought industrial produced pumpkin pie in front of me, I'm gonna load that thing up with whipped cream and I'm gonna enjoy the heck out of it.
Again, vehicle out for.
are we Cool
whipped
Whipping
cream.
it? Are we spraying it? Are you like
Whatever is available
Really?
to me,
That's a
brown
Cool Whip
sugar.
is Cool Whip's not a thing.
You know, I've never had a Cool Whip ever.
Yeah,
I've
right.
put many food in Cool Whip tubs in my wife's family because they're
Yeah.
always around as their choice of packaging.
No, Cool Whip is a whole nother story which I'll bore you with later.
So yeah, speaking of Thanksgiving traditions, my sister makes a Hershey bar pie, which you fold Cool Whip into. That's her contribution of a custard pie.
I am on board to give that a try because my son loves Hershey chocolate bars as much. I wish he didn't. He absolutely adores the things. It makes me so angry on my heart. Thankfully, my other kid hates them. One of them is all addicted in there. All right, we are right at the end of this sucker. What you got? Burning last minute pumpkin dreams that you want us to put out there. Like, are you, Daniel? Have you had the pumpkin spice latte? And have you had the Starbucks?
Yeah, so I have had the Starbucks, and I have to admit that it made me ill. Like, it actually gave me,
Really?
like, it did not sit.
Gastrointestinal distress.
Exactly. Yeah, it did not sit well with me. And I didn't realize that was a thing. Right. So I didn't go into it knowing that was a thing that some people experience.
You were out and not coming back.
From the Starbucks, absolutely. I'm very curious to see what Marcy's team is doing over at the Red
I've
House.
had theirs and it is good. And again, not my thing.
Yeah.
But I can appreciate that it's delicious, but
Right.
it's not why I
Right.
want to have my
and
spices.
spices and coffee, right? Is sounds like a thing that I can get behind. It's not the coffee that I want every day. I'm pretty much a purist when it comes to coffee, but yeah, but I think as a fun treat, that would be lovely.
I think the spices and again the flavor of the pumpkin are what are it's going to be a lot more appealing than that like cloying sweetness that you often get with like the Starbucks or other.
Sure,
branded
right,
IPAs.
and the Roadhouse has the horchata that they make with cinnamon in it, which is lovely, and I got that with a right because one of the things that I really look for is balance,
Yeah.
right, and some of these things are sweet, and the coffee can bring some balance to the force, right, and the coffee really balanced out the sweetness of the horchata, and I think it would be similar with the pumpkin spice thing.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to have that balance of spice and sweet.
All right. So
Pretty good.
in the description or somewhere in the Spotify piece, I'm going to try to get a Daniel's pie recipe. If I can't get Daniel's, I'm going to go after somebody else
Fair
and get
enough.
it in case yours is too secret. I think the thing I'd like to share is like the
Or lost to time.
lost
right?
the time, which
Lost
is
to
also
time.
okay.
Right.
And there's
Right.
something lovely about that too. Because sometimes you want to hold on to things forever. And honestly, things that have gone, we can celebrate them. Like you can never get that piece back. There's
Right.
some of my mum's recipes none of us have documented. And they probably came out of the back of some good food magazine back in the day. It wasn't like some secret research department
Right.
that came up with this.
Or you have the recipe, but it's just that the work of one's hands has evolved it over time, and it's
Right.
or
never
the
been
ingredient
Made
has
it your
changed that you're
own.
buying, or
Right.
that piece of what it is.
Yeah.
So I think a pie recipe that we love and is out there. I will say the Bakehouse has got their recipe. It's out in one of the books, at least the two Bakehouse books, and it is a solid pie. I think the other one would be a pumpkin spice blend that I'd want to share. And so I've had one, and this is where we get weird, and you both look at me like I've got three heads. But pumpkin spice seasoning for popcorn, I'm on board. Like that to me is a fun piece, right? That's where you lost me, but not sweet, it's savory. So instead of the sugar, it's the salt.
Alright.
So I'm not a salt popcorn guy unless it's pumpkin spice salt.
Well, one of the things I
Pumpkin
did,
spice salt.
Yeah, one of the things I did read when I was looking up pumpkin spice food everything options was pumpkin spice pumpkin seeds.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind, trying
That
that out.
I gotta tell you, the bacon. I mean, again, if you're vegetarian, not go in there. But like bacon fat fried pumpkin seeds with that spice, I could get on board with that
Yeah,
game as well.
yeah,
All right,
totally.
thank you, my lovelies. We're gonna see you on the other side of this. You have a wonderful day. Bye bye. So, thank you so much, my lovelies, for tuning in and listening to today's episode of the Heartland Hot Dish Podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more listeners just like you. Until next time, keep savoring the flavors of the Heartland and sharing the love for this vibrant community. Take care and stay connected.